Welcome, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to Tasty Tuesdays. And tonight we have my extra yummy, nourishing guest of Kate Moody with us today. Welcome, Kate.
Oh, thank you, Lorene.
How's your day been? How's your Tasty Tuesday been?
My Tasty Tuesday, I've actually been working from home today in my other counselling role that I do.
Oh, yeah. Fantastic. I just realised I probably spelled counsellor wrong. Oh, well.
That's okay. Yes, I've been at home working in my the nourishment and sanctuary of my own home. So it's been quite lovely.
Yeah.
Because you've got
busy, physically very, very busy, but I love it at the same time because, you know, when your body's active and moving, that's super nourishing too. And like I came home after I'd done my work today and had some yummy, nourishing food, and then I went off and had a nap. I actually had a walk and then I had a nap.
Yeah, sounds lovely.
I know, right? And I was just like, I was thinking to myself, gosh, you know, back in the days when I was working 47 and a half hours a week and, you know, over 6 days, and there was no time. Yeah. There was no time for any of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and it's amazing how, you know, when we were back living in that type of working week, just how much we crammed in and how much we actually did.
I'm like, I couldn't imagine working that many hours now.
No.
You know, that was 8 till 5 days a week plus extra hours on the weekend, and you know, still running in the house and husband and you know running him around and doing all the things because we only had the one car, so there was a lot of me running him around and or just being at home by myself.
Yeah, and in the long run, that can just become just not sustainable, like so many of us find out the hard way.
Yeah. I was reading on your beautiful website there that your sort of stopping point happened quite suddenly. Would you like to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So for me, I suppose where I came into learning the hard way around the limits of the human body was I was pretty much in my 20s. I was very much in that place of I was in a corporate career. I was very driven, just achieving and accomplishing and studying and working my way up that corporate ladder, and there were little signs that my body was telling me definitely along the way, particularly, and when I say along the way, it was probably like an 8-year process where my body was slowly breaking down through the endless pushing beyond I guess my limits and negating my needs and you know those little inner knowings that we all get, they were there, but I overrode those, and I just was in this pursuit to achieve certain life goals by a certain age. I think when I had for me, it was about getting to the age of 30 and having so many things ticked off that I wanted to achieve and get to. So for me, it was probably towards the end of my 20s when my body finally just hit a wall. It was. I still remember this one particular day. I was so exhausted to a point where, you know, if I allowed my body to, I would sleep up to, you know, 12, 15 hours through the night. But this one particular morning, I actually could not lift my body off the bed. I could not lift my head off the pillow. And it was like I'd just been hit by this freight truck. And the feeling was, it was just like this just blanket of fatigue that was just pressing down on my body. And it was in that moment that I knew that I was in trouble and that I'd kind of gone beyond, being able to kind of pull back. I'd just left it all too late. And I think,
what were some of the signs and symptoms that were popping up for you early on? Just thinking about, those things that we ignore early, like in those pre-moments that we just think, it doesn't mean anything. It's like, to somebody who's watching now, who's possibly not quite at that breaking point, but before that, what would be some of the things to look out for?
Yeah, there was, I was constantly tired. So there was almost like before that, not being able to get myself out of bed, there was just this chronic fatigue that I was constantly living with. And back in my 20s, I was also a runner. So I used to always, constantly push myself, just doing like a run around the block. Even though when I was feeling that exhaustion through my body, I somehow managed to push myself and do like a 5K jog. And I would sleep probably up to 12, 15, in that last stage, probably up to 12, 15 hours a night. But there was never that recovery in the morning. Like, I'd never wake up feeling refreshed. It was just this heavy fatigue. There was the brain fog. There was the anxious thoughts that were starting to creep in. There was just feeling that I just couldn't find that joy in life again. As all those things that used to light me up and would bring me that joy, it just wouldn't do it for me anymore. And so I think the key things were with the brain fog. It was just constantly waking up, feeling like I just hadn't slept that night. Just the anxious thoughts. And just not being able to find that joy in those little things that I used to get from being in nature, or having an ice cream, or just all those little things.
Yeah, I can absolutely relate. In my 20s, it was very similar. Very similar. And I was, like I said, I was working 47 and a half hours a week. I was in a toxic relationship, which probably didn't help, which is probably why I enjoyed working 47 and a half hours a week. But certainly the little signs for me of, where things, I could tell things were not right, with things like I was putting on weight. I put on weight really fast at the beginning of the relationship. And my breasts went from a B cup to an E cup within 9 months. It was just like, I was it was really crazy. And a lot like you, like I was finding I was tired a lot, and there was more than a few times at the job that I had at the time where I was very lucky. I was in an office away from everybody else, and I'd be on my laptop or computer like this, with one ear open for anybody walking towards me, because I was working in a building industry, so everybody's wearing steel cap boots. And so I'd have one ear open, but I'd actually be asleep.
I totally relate to that. And I think for me, towards the very end, when I was still able to work, I would get to the point to about, it was about 12 noon, and I would just break down in tears, because I could just no longer keep going. Like, my concentration wasn't there. I was making mistakes at work, just the little silly ones, and I just, it was just for about a week, I would just break down in tears, and I'd just find a room and take myself in there and try and pull myself together and and tell myself, it's okay, and keep going, and then it just got to a point where I just had to, I just realized that I just couldn't keep going. And at the time I was living in Sydney as well, and I just couldn't keep working. There was a part, I think, and part of that process, particularly when people go through that chronic fatigue and coming to that realization, part of that burnout process is actually, you do hit a bit of a wall of denial, and there's that pushing that keeps coming. And for me, and I describe when I kind of broke that wall down of denial, it was almost like it was my ego. There was like a death starting to go on with my ego, and a surrendering was starting to happen, and just coming to terms that that I wasn't okay, and that some big changes had to happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. My big stopping point happened when I got a middle ear infection. And I was at work and I thought, oh God, I didn't feel great. I felt really off. And I thought I felt really like lethargic, like you're saying. And so I asked for one of my co-workers to go upstairs and grab a crunchy bar. And because I thought maybe I'm just running a bit low on sugar or something, I'm just not feeling good. They went and grabbed one for me and I ate about, I don't know, 2 or 3 mouthfuls. And then all of a sudden I was just like, shit, I've got to get to the bathroom like now. And they came over and found me about 15 minutes later, wrapped around the toilet. And I was just vomiting over and over and over again. And like I said, because we only had the one car, she ended up taking me off to the doctor's and, with a good old bucket in my hand. And that middle ear infection turned into vertigo, which set me on my ass for 2 weeks. I had to stay home. I just had to, and for the first week I was in bed, just like I had to crawl for the first 2 days. I had to crawl down the hallway to get to the bathroom. Because I couldn't do anything. Like, I don't know if anybody watching this has ever had vertigo, but it's not nice. Everything goes swirly. I've had it once since, and I never wish to have it again. But what I realized through that time, especially after the second time of getting it many years later, was it was my body's way of saying stop. And listen and look at what is going on around you, because what you're choosing right now is not working. And absolutely. You have to start changing some shit right now, but we're going to do this in such a big way because you're not freaking listening. So we're going to make you stop, and you can't do anything. I couldn't read. I couldn't watch TV. I couldn't listen to anything because my ears were wacko. I just literally had to lie there and sleep or look at the inside of my eyelids because everything made me feel sick.
I think what happens is that when we get to that stage, with that chronic fatigue and exhaustion, that deep exhaustion and burnout, is that our spirit from within, it's trying to really get our attention, and that can be through the different messages through our body. It could be symptoms that start to come up through the body. And when we're not listening or and overriding those messages and our needs, we get that Big Mac truck.
Absolutely. So that was an interesting time. Both times actually were very interesting, and it's always more interesting, I think, to look at it upon reflection. It's like, while you're in it, you can't really see the gift. But once you're out of it and you sort of got a little bit of space between that, it's like, actually.
And there is so much, there is just so much gold in that, when we finally stop and allow ourselves to go inwards and rest in that stillness, and that's where all that healing and rejuvenating happens.
Absolutely. So with your journey and your Mac truck, your Mac truck moment, how did that progress for you?
So that happened. So it was at that point I still stayed in Sydney for another 3 months, but that Mack truck moment, it actually, if I'm honest, it scared the shit out of me because I could literally not get out of bed. I just did not have the energy to even get up and stand and walk. So I actually found myself just lying in bed, probably for a good eight hours, and I was just drinking and to try and get a little bit of energy. And I finally got myself up, and it was in that moment when I realized that I needed to really stop and tune into what was happening. So at the time of living in Sydney, I found myself, I got onto a really amazing acupuncturist, and he did wonders. I could every time I'd have a session, I could just literally feel that life force energy just igniting again. And for a good 3 hours after the session, I just felt human again, and could actually get up and do dishes and washing and and it was a little bit easier getting myself to work at the time. I was still working. But then after about that 3 hours, my energy would just crash, and then I'd find myself having to rest in bed. And so I got to a point where I had to let go of work, working full time. And for the last 3 months while I was in Sydney not working, that's when my healing journey started with the acupuncturist, and I just knew that I just had to keep working with the acupuncture healing, because it was just, I could just feel the energy coming back up through my meridians and energy system, and I just knew that was just that key start to my healing. And then at some point, there was, and I think, once you allow yourself to really surrender into really any healing journey that you may find yourself on, there's always those inner knowings that arise, those inner knowings of what that next step feels like and looks like. And then at some point, I just got a very clear inner knowing to actually return back to my parents' farm, which was in South Australia. And then for the next 12 months, I actually spent 12 months on the land, and just healing myself in the stillness and spaciousness of the earth and nature. And that was I think really allowed me for my recovery to really start to kick in, probably 6 months into being back on the land and farm.
Yeah, it's incredible how much of a difference being actually with the land makes to your recovery. Yep. It's like people don't give it enough credit.
No. And part of that process as well is because up until that burnout really taking hold of my body and the brain fog through my mind, I had grown to be just very, I suppose, fiercely independent as well. So, right up until my 20s. So a big part of that healing process was actually allowing myself to come back home on the farm and receive that support, from my family. So that was another really big key to the healing as well. Yeah, and just to be held back in that nourishment of, having my meals made, and just letting go, just of all of those responsibilities, that we grow into.
Yeah, absolutely. I can very much relate to that part of the journey, because when I was in my late 20s and my first marriage went really quickly, it was obviously, it was a toxic marriage, like I'd said before, but it was like when it actually ended, it was like night and day. It happened in one phone call, and it was just like, boom, done. And so I went into immediate shock. And luckily I was at home at my mum's at the time, having a little long weekend break. So much like you, I was then taken in, and my granddad, my mum's dad, was just so nourishing, and he very much helped bring me back, bring me forward, helped, he just wrapped me up. And, when I was ready to start working and start doing stuff, he was just like, okay. And he found stuff for us to do that didn't involve a lot of other people, because he could see I couldn't handle others at that point. It was just, I had to do stuff, just him and me. That was it. Him, me, and the land, and that was it.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, so I totally get it. It's quite interesting. I never realized how similar parts of our journeys have been. It's so curious.
Yeah.
So, in your journey with that healing and all of that sort of stuff, like, where did you go to next? Like, how did you get into counseling and yoga and stuff like that?
Yeah, so a big part of my healing and recovery journey was just not also, just allowing my body and my healing journey to be held, just in that nourishing space, on the farm and land. But part of that, I had actually trained as a yoga teacher when I was actually in Sydney. So I found that everything that I'd learned in the yoga and meditation became a lifeline and just a crucial part of that recovery. So it was through the restorative yoga and just really giving my body that permission to relax, to let go, and to just be, rather being in that cycle of rushing and doing constantly, like I had been up all throughout my 20s. It was a invitation to, I guess, to go within and rest deeply within that stillness. And it was from that nourishment from within, through the yoga practices, through the meditation practices, through spiritual practices, that it really allowed myself to kind of just trust that healing process. And it was almost like a death of my ego that was happening as well. And through that 12 months on the farm, it was a rebirth came through. And part of that process as well was also allowing myself to be supported in that healing and recovery process. So for me, that looked like at some point reaching out to a counsellor, and actually having a counsellor walk alongside me, and we just unraveled and unpacked the whole why behind how my path led to burnout. Yeah. So that was in relation to your question, that was my why behind, at some point, becoming a counsellor and just holding that space for others.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a valuable thing. And I get that at the moment, that's the moment. And for the next little while, there's going to be a great need and requirement for counsellors who approach things from, a more holistic point of view as well. And it's not just about, ticking off the boxes. Okay, you have this. It's like, it's looking at things from everything point of view. It's that holistic side, the mind, the body, the soul, the environment, the everything that surrounds that person.
And I think up until these, we've had it, if you look at the last, I guess, 2.5 years on this planet, all of us have gone through so much, and I'll touch on that in just a moment. But prior to, I suppose, this pandemic and what we've all experienced in these last 2 years, I think collectively, and systemically, women have experienced so much burnout at some point in their life cycle, and that's that comes from all the conditioning that we receive, from our childhood and growing up. And then I think by the time we reach our adult life, it's we find ourselves just juggling motherhood and careers and family, and growing into that place of thinking that we, in order to affirm our self-worth, we have to be that everything to everyone. And I think that this is this cycle that so many of us really fall into. And then if you add that layer of what we've all experienced, in this last 2.5 years, it's another intensity of that chronic stress and burnout and even trauma, that's crept into all of our lives in this last 2.5 years. So, from even with what my body has responded to and gone through in this last 2.5 years, there's, I know even last year there was a tiny little bit of, I was recognizing that if I don't pull back, last year I could sense that my body was going to go into burnout if I kept at that pace and responding to what was going on around me. Last year. So our nervous systems, particularly in this last 2.5 years, is they've gone through a lot. And that's what, just through my own lived experience with burnout, is that's what burnout is. Burnout, it is a nervous system response to, to that chronic stress that's constantly in our physical environment, and our perception as well, and our perception in how we perceive that stress or that threat to our body. Yeah.
I absolutely agree. And I think that's something important for the audience, the people who are going to watch this in the future as well. That what you just said there of burnout is like a nervous system response to chronic stress.
Mm-hmm.
Our bodies are not meant to be up here all the time. It's like, and everything, so many industries, so many workplaces are just like, you have to be on the go, creating, doing more, blah, 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 all the time. Da, 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 da. And don't you dare think about having a day off.
Yep.
Because if you do, you might be risking losing that job, losing that promotion, losing, whatever. And it's like, hang on a minute. There's this thing called a work-life balance, people.
Yes.
It's like, there's a reason why they had the 8-hour workday.
Yeah, and I think, particularly in this last 2.5 years, a lot of organisations, in the way that they responded, workplaces responded to, to the pandemic and the and and all the layers that came with that through, through the changes from, the main health systems in every state. We're seeing a lot of our organisations and workplaces going into that overdrive, and creating that sense of chaos and anxiety within the workplace. And our bodies at the moment, all of our bodies and nervous systems all need a lot of love and nourishment, and that opportunity to kind of just step back and slow down and really, tune in to our needs. And
100%. It's like, I noticed that particularly over the last 2.5 years, like I haven't been a big news watcher for a really long time anyway, because back in my early 20s, there was one particular day because we used to do the whole thing. We used to come in from work at the end of the day, chuck on the telly, the news would be on, we'd sit down we'd create dinner, sit down, eat our dinner in front of the TV, news would be on or whatever. Change the channel, catch the later news. Crazy. And there was one of the wars going on. So this is going back, I would say, 20 years ago. So it must have been the Iraq War. And I just started crying. I was watching the news and I just started crying. And my husband says to me, I don't think we should watch the news anymore. Because I just sat there and I said, why do people have to be so mean to each other? Why are they being so horrible? It's not necessary.
Yep.
And he couldn't console me at all. His answer was to just not watch the news anymore, which worked well for me. But, with my time in disability, it was incredible how many people in that sector they love the news, and they just sit there and they just watch it and watch it and watch it. And it's like, because I was around them at that time for nearly 2 years while all of that was going on. And it was just, I was so grateful for not having that in my life in an everyday form, you know. And so I stopped, like, I haven't listened to regular radio for ages, like years. I haven't listened to regular radio unless it was on at my client's house. I don't even listen to a hell of a lot of music these days, because music can affect my vibe as well.
Yes.
You know? And so I'm very selective about what I listen to. And that has been a really interesting, and then because I've become more probably hypersensitive to the messaging, I watch movies and stuff on Netflix, and I'm just like going, oh my God, there's this symbology and that symbology. Do you see what they're trying to make you believe? Like,
and this parallel, and
I was like, oh my word. Like, even in kids' movies and stuff like that, there's so much that is injected into the for want of a better word, incorporated into these movies. It's just like, oh my word. The indoctrination.
It really is. And I think more than ever in the times that we're living in, it's just absolutely important that we set up some type of rituals or self-soothing practices, or, that ground us and center us, and, so that we can stay connected to our, internal compass of truth and guidance and what's right for us.
Absolutely. I was just watching a video from a friend who'd shared it, and they said, in that 5 minutes before you go to sleep, that's the time that your body actually takes that and uses that as, like, that's what you percolate in. That's what you stew in while you sleep. So if in that 5 minutes before you go to sleep, you're sitting there thinking about this wrong thing, that wrong thing, that's something that somebody did wrong to me, I'm worrying about bills, I'm worrying about blah, 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 blah. I'm stressed.
Yep.
That's what your body is going to be stewing in for the next 6, 8, 10, however many hours you sleep. And it's like, so then your body is literally like bringing that into your cellular structure. So if you really wish to do some lovely nourishing things for your body, spend that 5 minutes before you go to sleep
definitely
thinking about the life you desire to create, the great things, doing your gratitude journals, all that sort of stuff, just to really get your brain and your body into like a more soothing, calm, centered space. If you're into meditation, do meditation for 5 minutes, all that sort of stuff.
Absolutely. It's just so important.
So I'd love to know, what is your most tasty moment in your life so far?
Well, at the moment this year, I've actually started a veggie garden. And it's something that I've always wanted to do. It's been on my bucket list to do for this, just for the intention behind just nourishing the body and knowing what I'm actually eating. So knowing, from the creation of, the soil and the seeds that you're putting in and where you're buying the seedlings. So so I started that adventure and project with my partner back in March, and I'd have to say, just that whole it's actually been a really creative process, and it's just been so joyful. Just learning about how to create the most nourishing soil, and watching the little seeds and seedlings grow, and it's almost like they've become my little babies, and I'm out there always checking and watering, and nourishing with seaweed, water.
Oh,
Yeah, so it's been that process, and then the most satisfying part, of course, is that is the harvest that comes with that, and actually going out there and picking silver beet or spinach or carrots, beetroot, and making a meal out of that, and that's probably been my most tasteful experience on all those different levels today.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Have you got space for snow peas?
Yes, I will. That'll be part of my summer garden.
They are one of the easiest things to grow.
Yeah.
All the snow peas and the sugar snap peas, they are some of my favorites, and they're generally so abundant, and they don't require a lot of like extra with the soil or anything. It's just like the last time I grew them, I had quite a clay-ish soil, and I just put a bag of poop in there, good old manure, mixed it all up, let it settle for a few days, and then in went the peas, and it was just like
amazing.
So good, so good.
Yeah.
So if you had somebody just sort of I'm going to rework that question just a little bit. I was going to say somebody's starting out in the business, but I think given what your speciality is, what would you say to someone who is like at that point where they're kind of hitting that barrier of denial?
Yep.
And what would you say to them?
In that stage of, I would actually just guide them to come back and reconnect to their body and breath, and just allow their awareness to kind of just sit in that place every time that they reconnected to their body and breath, and then whether it's and just bringing their awareness to, well, where's my breath? How deeply am I breathing in my body? Is my breath shallow, and am I just being able to breathe up here into my throat or collarbone, chest area, and just kind of gently inviting a person's awareness to kind of start to explore where their body is, where's their breath at, and then allowing that to be an access inwards into well, where are their needs, and where are their energy levels at, and what do you truly want, rather than all these pressures or responsibilities, or doing being that everything to everyone. What coming back to, what do you really want, and allowing yourself to to feel that and have that.
Yeah, absolutely. To me, that is probably one of the most important things, is to realize and to connect back with the body, because we just get so disconnected. And one of the things that I talk about with my clients, especially the ones that are severely disconnected, is to take 5 minutes every day. It doesn't matter the time of day, doesn't matter when, where, how, why, but to just go outside and sit in nature and just breathe for 5 minutes. Put a timer on it, because I know you're busy people and you've got lots to do, So spend 5 minutes. Just you can do eyes open, eyes closed, it doesn't matter. But 5 minutes just being in nature. And like, even if you've only got a little balcony and you've just got one little pot plant, so just spend that time with it and just allow it to contribute to you. And just having that moment just to stop and be still and take note of the body and how it's changing, and the heartbeat and the breath and how many times you're blinking and all those sorts of things. It's just we just don't do it enough.
No, we don't.
And that like you said, that opening to actually allow them to then expand on that, to grow with that and go, okay, now maybe they can actually access that level of gratitude with a little bit more ease. But when you're so disconnected, that level of gratitude is just almost impossible to access.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And I remember way back when I was first starting my spiritual journey, and I went off to a law of attraction group, and they were talking about gratitude, and they were saying, just do 5 gratitudes every day. And I was just like, at that time, I was still, recovering a little bit from, the first marriage, and I was getting my life back together, and I was working and doing all that sort of stuff, but things were still in recovery. And I was like, gratitude? What does gratitude mean? It's like bullshit, whatever. But they're like, and then I became aware of the fact that I just had no idea what gratitude meant to me. I couldn't grasp it because I just didn't feel anything. I was still feeling numb at that point. And that question did come up by somebody with a bit more courage than me in the group. And they said, it's okay. Just keep it simple. Be grateful for your hands. Be grateful for for touch. What can you do with touch that if you didn't have it? Be grateful for your sense of smell. Be grateful for your sense of taste. Just take it back to the 5 senses and why.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely.
All these lovely little ways we can nourish ourselves.
and start to really tune in and waken our own internal sensory system. And
absolutely. So I'd love to know if you could say anything to your 20-year-old self, what would you say? Knowing what you know now, and I know there is lovely people in my audience that go, everything is the way it's meant to be, and if you didn't have that experience, then you wouldn't be where you are now, and I get all of that too. It's just curious, like there is maybe a way that you could have eased it a little bit, or not, or I'm curious, what would your response be?
What's coming to mind is I would actually tell that younger part of myself that it's actually that I don't have to do life on my own, that it's actually okay to reach out for support, and and to allow someone to to walk alongside you when you are actually going through a tough time. And that it's that we actually are here to connect with each other and connect in community, and that we don't have to take that solo path in life. So I very much probably developed that real strong sense of independence, and I've got this, and I can do this, and I think at the time there is that mentality, in our 20s, it's, that big part of that, it is actually going out there and exploring the world and finding your sense of belonging, in the world and your community. But it's also, just to let people in and allow yourself to be supported. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think I would probably say something similar. Like, you don't have to do it all by yourself, honey. You're okay.
No.
It's like, without messing up the future, you're going to go through some pretty hard shit. It's okay. Just
and it's okay to not be okay. Rather than to that was probably a big one that I did in my 20s, was to just override. When those feelings would bubble up and I could feel that I wasn't feeling okay, but I just kind of, picked myself up, soldiered on. But if perhaps if I had allowed myself to maybe stay with those feelings and those emotions, there could have been, perhaps more of a different richer experience,
Yeah.
throughout those 20s. But, that's part of our 20s, is discovering all of that in this human experience that we're having.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I still look at it from that beautiful point of view of going, for us to have gone through all of those incredible experiences, the highs and the very low lows, and then be able to be in the position that we are now, we can now help nourish, to use your words, to help nourish the next people along, so that then we can go, look, your journey doesn't have to be as hard as what I did it.
No. And I actually, in my, my counselling practice, I love working with the younger generations, like the younger ones that find themselves in my counselling space, whether they're in their late teens or early 20s. And it's like, if I just had a guide or mentor or someone like that. And I really love that space, just walking alongside, that younger generation. And
yeah, I'm so grateful that it's now way more accessible to people to choose that, to go, you know what, my parents don't know everything. And the parents go, I don't fucking know everything. So I can't support my kids as much as what they would like me to.
And, at the end of the day, they were struggling themselves, behind closed doors. And, we never came with a manual as, how to raise kids. So they, they had their own struggles going on, and that they were trying to mask and, keep it together. And
yeah, absolutely. It's when you're I think maybe it's the age that we're at now. We can sort of see a little bit more, the picture is a little bit fuller, and we can sort of perceive more of what was going on, from all the different angles and perspectives. And I'm seeing things play out now with similar relationships to what it was for me in my first relationship, that first marriage, and I'm seeing it playing out with some other friends of mine, and from the parental perspective, looking at their kids, and I'm just like going, gosh, that must have been tough.
Absolutely, tough. And it is oh no, you go, sorry.
Oh, it's okay. I was just going to say, tough for not only my family, but my friends too, that really cared, who didn't feel like they could say anything.
It is really tough. And I think, when you go through your own, those really tough passages in life, you really do come out that other side with, I think, developing that compassion and just a deeper understanding for what our parents have walked through, and just what other people go through in life and find themselves struggling with.
Absolutely. Talking about the deliciousness of other people, my sort of semi wrap up question is, if you could sit next to any person on a park bench, and it doesn't matter if they're alive or dead, who would that be and why?
For me, it would be my two beautiful grandmothers, who have now passed on. But my beautiful grandmothers, they really held that, I come back to that word again, but they really did hold that nourishing space for me throughout my life. And, they were very wise. And I just, I used to spend a lot of time in my 20s and 30s, when they were still both alive. And I just made sure I always carved out that time to have that cup of tea and have those chats. And particularly as I was starting to go more into my 30s and 40s, I was starting to just ask them those questions, and about, to hear their reflection of, of their life lessons. And so I really, those conversations were just so precious, and I'd love to I'd love to just have that one more conversation with both of them, and I've got some more questions that I'd love to just sit and ask.
Yeah, I feel you. I feel you on that one. It's like I'm very fortunate to have my granddad he floats around still. And there'll be times when I'm trying to do something while I'm doing renovations and I'll be like, okay, Granddad, I really have to have your help here now. Can you please give me some guidance because I don't know what to do?
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, some form of inspired thought comes through and I'm like, thank you, Granddad. Thank you for helping me there. But, I'm a bit like you. If I could just sit with him and hold him and, just have a cup of tea with him and just enjoy that space with him. Just one more time. That would just be so beautiful,
Yeah.
And like you, I've still got questions.
Me too. I've got quite a few now. A few more.
Oh, dear. So do you have any special events or anything like that coming up at the minute?
Yeah, so I quite often, probably about 3 or 4 times a year, I do run a women's, what I call it's a 6-week women's restoration yoga program. So that's coming up in October, and also I'll be holding one of my women's circles, which is very much about women coming into a safe space, and it's more about us coming from that place and just sharing who we are through our stories and allowing ourselves to be seen and heard and held in that place. So that beautiful women's circle that's coming up it'll probably be November, December, and it's also going to be the theme around renewal and an opportunity to go inwards and then to kind of start to come out the other side of that afternoon as we walk towards 2023. Yeah.
Isn't that a bit nuts?
It's crazy how quickly these years go by.
Yeah. Where can people find you?
Yep, so people can find me on my website. So it's nourishyourwellbeing.com.au. That's probably one of the main places. I'm also on Facebook as well and Instagram as Nourish Your Wellbeing as well. So you're more than welcome to reach out, send me a message if you wanted to do that.
Excellent. And whereabouts in Adelaide will your 6-week yoga?
It'll be it'll be probably on the west side of Adelaide. So I'm still looking for that. Yeah, for that lovely sacred space to hold us all in. Yeah, on the west side of Adelaide.
Okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So for anybody who's interested in that, get in touch with Kate at her website, and I'm sure she'll pop you on a little list, and then you can get right in there.
Yeah.
Soon as the venue's up and running, she'll be like, there we go.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Thank you. And I know
welcome.
that you had a little lovely treat for us to just wind up the show tonight. And we've spoken a lot about breath and the importance of breath and connecting in with our bodies. And I know Kate has a little treat and a surprise up her little sleeve for us. So I'll hand it over to you now, Kate.
Okay, thank you. So wherever you may be, just finding that comfortable seated position, or you may even like to lie down. If you've got a blanket there, welcome to pop a blanket on top of you, or maybe if you're lying down, a blanket underneath your neck or head. And then just finding the time to just start to bring your awareness back to your breath, your body. So you may like to close your eyes, keep your eyes open, whatever feels right for you. And then you may like to place one hand over your heart, the other hand over your belly. That's it. And then just start to bring your awareness to your breath. And just noticing whether or not you're breathing into your chest, whether you're breathing into the belly. And then you may like to start to breathe in and out through your nose. Breathing in and out through our nose helps to start to soothe the nervous system. So you may like to breathe in for 4 counts through the nose. Breathing out for 4 counts. That's it. And then you may like to start to, on the exhalation, perhaps breathe out for 6 counts. So as we're breathing in, perhaps consciously taking that in-breath down into your belly for 4 counts. And then as you're breathing out, just breathing out for 6 counts. That's it. And when that exhalation is longer than the inhalation, what this does internally is that it sends a message to our cells throughout our body, to our nervous system, that we're safe in this moment. That's it. And just staying with that breath, just noticing what's happening through your body as you deepen that breath into the body. And if you find perhaps that your thoughts are quite busy, you may like to take your awareness into that space between each out-breath and in-breath. And just allowing your awareness to rest in that space. Just resting within. And just allowing the stillness within your breath just to hold you in that place of nourishment, of safety. And then for the women that have joined us tonight, you may like to then now start to take your awareness down into your womb space. Still breathing in and out through your nose. That's it. And then as you're holding your awareness in your womb space through your body, I've got a really beautiful body blessing to read out to you. So this body prayer blessing is written by a beautiful woman called Tammy Kent, who's a pelvic floor therapist. That's it. And just allowing these words just to land in your awareness and allowing the energy behind these words just to land through your body, just landing into your womb space. And just bringing presence to your own strong, resilient, beautiful body. So bless my feet and legs and let them walk with the grounding energy of the earth. Bless my pelvis that I may hold my values as a woman, make space for my creations, and release what no longer belongs with me. Bless my vagina. May I be clear about what I bring into or release from my body or life. Bless my feminine organs, that I use my creative potential in ways that are beneficial and sustainable for my spirit. Bless my belly, and may I be my place of feminine power. Bless my hands and arms, And may they cultivate and receive a joyful bounty. Bless my heart and chest, that I receive and give fully the love I share with others. Bless my breast, that I nourish myself as lovingly as I nourish my creations and others. Bless my throat and head, and may I speak my truth and clarify my visions. Bless the paths behind and ahead of me and my ancestors that walk alongside me, and that the paths behind and ahead of me may transform what I carry into the future. Bless the place I now stand as a woman, and may I be fully present in my body and life and celebrate the blessings of this moment and the next moment. And may you always remember your sacred body. And just allowing your awareness just to be with that body prayer and blessing. Just coming back to your breath. You may like to deepen the in-breath down into your belly, into your womb space. And then just beginning to bring your awareness to your body, your skin, your arms, your legs. That's it. Just gradually just bringing some gentle movement into your fingers, your toes. And then as you gently bring your awareness back into your surrounds, in your home, just gradually, softly, just opening your eyes. And as you do so, just starting to notice just 5 things that you can see around you and just quietly naming those 5 things that you can see. And then bringing your awareness to 4 things that your body can feel in this moment. Could be the socks on your feet, could be the scarf around your neck. Just naming those 4 things that your body can feel. 3 things that you can hear, and just quietly naming those 3 things that you can hear in the environment that you're in. Taking your awareness to 2 things that you can smell, and naming those 2 things that you can smell. And then 1 thing that you can taste, and just quietly just naming that 1 thing that you can taste. And then just bringing our hands together and just bow. You may like to just bow down to the highest within you and just acknowledging your goodness, your kindness, your inner resilience of strength and courage and bravery. And just bringing to mind just 1 thing that you're grateful for in your life at the moment. And then just breathing the essence of that gratitude just down through your body, into your heart, into your belly, into your womb space, into Mother Earth. Just feeling that sense of connection and groundedness to the earth. And then as you're breathing out, just breathing out that gratitude for life itself as we begin to lift our forehead from our fingertips. Just that gratitude for everything that's brought us to this place in your life. There's always something to be thankful for. Welcome back.
Wow. that was a bit of energy that moved in the middle of that for me.
Yeah.
It was quite unexpected, actually. I was like, oh, this is going to be lovely. I mean, I've done loads of meditations and stuff myself, and it was just like all of a sudden right in the middle there, it was just like, whoa.
Yeah.
It was awesome. Thank you so much. What a beautiful treat for my listeners and watchers today.
You're welcome.
So, how did we get so freaking lucky?
Thank you. Oh, thank you.
So yes, if anybody out there is requiring somebody to, you know, hold their hand with them on their journey, and especially if they're someone who has experienced a bit of the burnout, or if they're heading along that way, or there's just, you know, if they've got those symptoms that we were talking about, like the chronic fatigue and the and all of that sort of stuff, the brain fog and all those sorts of things, go to Kate. You know, she's just so beautiful and kind and caring, and she'll help you with whatever you require for that. You know, like you said, like we said before, if only we had people like you back then.
Yes. Yeah.
But hey, if we had people like you back then we wouldn't have you now, as you are now.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we grow into the person who we are, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. And
my pleasure.
In the little show notes, if anybody's been clever and actually had a little look, there's an extra sweet little gift there for the lovely women who are watching this show. So I'm not going to necessarily tell you about it. You'll have to go into the show notes and find it. And so that's for the beautiful women in our audience tonight and into the future. There's a little wee gift in there, so go check it out. And I'm still like spaced. It's great. After such a busy day, I'm just like, yes.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's just been it's been a pleasure to come on and chat, and and thank you for all that you do as well in the community as well, Lorene. It's really amazing, and we need your gift in this world at this time. So thank you.
Yeah, my absolute pleasure. It really truly is, and I just feel, to be honest, I feel really honoured to have this space, to have this platform. I feel just so grateful that my journey has led me to this point where I can now connect with so many other incredible beings. And, you know, whether this be something that is watched now or into the future, it doesn't really matter to me. It's about getting these stories out there. It's about showing people that there is light at the end of the tunnel. You know, like when we're in that space, like in particular for what we've spoken about tonight, it's, you know, knowing there are other people out there that have been through similar stuff to what we have. And what the audiences perhaps, or maybe they know someone that's, you know, they may not have experienced directly, but you know, they may know of a friend who is showing those signs and symptoms, and they can spot it as a friend, but when you're in it, you can't necessarily spot it.
You can't. And if anything's come out of this conversation tonight, you know, if we've been able to normalize, you know, that health or life crisis that you might be in, or that dark night of the soul, it's, you know, everything that you're feeling and experiencing is completely normal. And it's that part of that healing or coming undone or coming apart, so that you can, you know, you've got that beautiful opportunity to kind of rebuild and heal and create that life that is actually more in alignment to, you know, to your heart's desires and your values and just everything that you stand for in this, you know, in this world.
Yeah, 100%. I completely agree. And it's quite often I look at this spiritual journey very similar to how I look at renovations. sometimes you've got to make a jolly big mess.
Yep.
Everything's just got to break all apart.
Yep.
You've got to get rid of all the dust, get rid of all the cobwebs, get rid of all the stuff that no longer works and no longer serves you. Tip it off to the dump.
Yep.
And then start fresh.
Yeah,
you know?
be with that messiness and the humanness, and just trust that, just trust that process, that that you do have that internal guidance system that will, when we're tuned into that, you'll get that clarity as to what that next step is, or what support to reach out to. And there's always a way forward, and there's that hope, and there's always someone out there that wants to help us.
Absolutely. And the other thing I would say is, if you are going through any of this and any of our conversations tonight have triggered you in any way, please reach out to either of us. In particular, Kate, because this is her podcast spotlight today. But if it has, and please let us know. Get in touch, and we will do our best to support you in whatever you're going through. And the other thing that is just pinging at me to say is, please know that every step is important, even if it's only a teeny tiny one. Even if, when you're in that point of not being able to get out of bed and you actually got your head up off the pillow today. Celebrate that.
Absolutely.
For me, it was quite the opposite when I went through the big, huge breakup, because I didn't sleep. So when I actually was able to sleep for more than 2 hours without waking up with a nightmare, clutching at the walls, screaming, that to me was a celebration.
Absolutely. And I think that next, just even if it's just those one or two things, that's all that you can do in a day, to know that that's enough, and that's okay. Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. And so just please know that it's okay. Whatever you're going through, it's actually okay. And once you're through the other side of whatever you're going through, you will see the gifts, you will see the gold, you will see the nuggets, and it will be, you'll go, oh, okay.
You're okay.
You're okay. You don't have to give up now. Don't be like the renovator that keeps all the dust. Alrighty, my beautiful ones. So coming up for me, of course, we've got Find You Fridays, which is at 8 p.m. Adelaide time. And that's our wonderful reading show that is full of all sorts of interesting tips and tricks. And it's so much more than a reading show. And it's just organically creating itself this way. And I absolutely love it. And then next week we have Debbie Love, who is actually my first international guest all the way from New Zealand. She's coming on to talk about things around spirituality and being a chartered accountant, and how do those two things come together? It'll be interesting to have that chat for sure. So again, thank you, Kate, so much for coming to play, and I will see you all on Friday, if not Friday, next week on Tasty Tuesdays. Thank you again. Be bold, be brave, be you, my beautiful friends, and we'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.